The Philadelphia Phillies have officially dropped back-to-back series for the first time this season and looked as lifeless at the plate as we have seen so far this year. I want to break down why it is time to start having a few concerns about some of the familiar faces in this lineup, what the fix is from here, and what I take about Rob Thomson's constant tinkering with the lineups here. It was a strong start out of gate for this Phillies team, but ultimately coming into a little bit of a cold spell here as they have dropped back-to-back series here. Do want to get into what exactly that means, but before I do, make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. That once again, we want to grow this Phillies Digest family as large as possible, and we are full guns a-blazing on the season overall. With that said, there only 37.9% of you guys watching these videos have subscribed to us here on Phillies Digest to this point, so make sure you're hitting that button. It helps us out a ton here, and now let's get into the topic of today. A 7-0 loss at the hands of the Cardinals here, and as lifeless as that score would indicate. I mean, to give a little hint at the runners in scoring position on this series, which is becoming a theme with this Phillies team, they went 2 for 17 with runners in scoring position this series. It was some tough baseball to watch this weekend. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This was kind of the first time I was like, geez, it's a little tough from this Phillies team. There didn't feel to be that spunk, this fight, that it just felt, getting through the order. And at the start of this series, I was a little apologetic for it, that I know this started out with obviously that extra inning game going deep into the night against the Atlanta Braves and then turn around the next night and have to play in St. Louis there. But it just kind of hung around the whole series here. And yes, they did win one of those games there. I'm not going to overlook it, but I do think that we're at the point where we might have to start talking about some changes within this Phillies team. And at the forefront of that conversation does tend to come in two specific faces that we've been talking about quite a bit. That is Alec Bohm and that is Brandon Marsh here. Now, the reason that I bring this up, and it was nice to see a little bit of a sign of life from Bohm out of the gates this year, wasn't really the case with Brandon Marsh. And I think what I'm fully recognizing with Marsh specifically, this has been going on a long time here. You can't underlook 2023, I guess I should say, that he was pretty excellent for this team after the trade deadline there. But since this point, he just really has not been a starting quality outfielder in the way that the team needs him to be. And what is particularly frustrating on that conversation to me is it feels like this has been a nonstop search for improving the outfield. That we've talked for several years to this point about why the outfield is not good enough, and we've yet to actually fix the problem. Brandon Marsh was looked at as a guy that should be at least a portion of the fix. Now, to talk on the exact numbers, for Marsh specifically, since July 1st, 2024, he's played 82 games, had produced hitting splits of 214, 301, 383. That is a .684 OPS, 10 home runs, 33 RBIs, and a 92 WRC plus there. For Alec Bohm, a little bit of a different situation. I do want to separate those guys, but as to give out the stats here, since May 1st, Bohm has played 125 games with hitting splits of 246, 289, and 383. He's had 11 home runs and 70 RBIs with an 85 WRC there. Now, when it comes to Bohm, I get having a little bit longer leash, that his peaks have certainly been higher than Brandon Marsh. We've seen Alec Bohm play like a legitimate all-star for the entire first half of last season, and there is still hope that he can get back to that. With Brandon Marsh, I don't really have all-star hopes for him at the end of the day. I think at best, this guy is sort of a starting caliber, left fielder, center fielder, however you want to put him there. The problem is it all kind of magnifies. And a guy with Johan Rojas, who's a key picture in the outfield puzzle here, his strengths and his weaknesses are looking awfully similar to Brandon Marsh. Now, what is frustrating about Marsh specifically, and by the way, Rojas a better fielder, it's the strikeouts with Marsh. And shout out to Mark Henry Jr., my co-host on Saturday mornings for the Fox Sports Philadelphia show. He pointed out that the when you dive into the strikeout metrics, it's always the same with Brandon Marsh. He always strikes out at a high rate. He's always pushing some of the highest strikeout rates in the league. And to give that specifically for what we're talking about, that this season, he's down to a 111 batting average. That is 4 for 36 on the year and a 31.8% strikeout rate. That strikeout rate is not unique to him or not uncommon for him. We're going to see that for stretches, but it hurts so much more when he's not producing on the other side of things. When those make contacts are turning to pop outs and ground outs rather than base hits or driving one to the gap here, you feel it within these Phillies lineup. And for Marsh specifically here, I don't really know where we go from here. Like, when thinking about this outfield picture, obviously Nick Castellanos is holding things down in right field, and shout out to Cassie, man. The Phillies are a different team when Nick Castellanos is swagging out there in the outfield. In the left field, Max Kepler, who I'm not ready to get there with the conversation on what's the deal with this guy yet, but I certainly have not been blown away or impressed with the version of him we've seen on the field. Defensively, he's totally fine. The bat just hasn't felt like it's waking up yet. Now, with that being said, when I watch him at the plate, when I watch him just miss a couple pitches, it still feels like there's something there. I'm not selling my Max Kepler stock or disbelieving in this guy to this point, but he has not delivered. We have to address that point blank, period. Now, center field is where the conversation gets in. It's Johan Rojas or Brandon Marsh right now. Neither of these guys can hit a baseball, and that's where we get to the conversation of, is it time to start actually make some changes? To the point of that, let's take a look at some of these guys on this Phillies roster that still have a chance at being sent down to the minors without clearing waivers there. That is Jesus Luzardo, who I certainly want to remain on this Phillies team. Ryan Kirkring, who I see no world when he ever gets sent down. Tanner Banks, doubt it, but not taking that one off the table. Certainly not right now. He's been one of their better bullpen arms thus far this season. Alec Bohm, that would be the ultimate FU move to Bohm. And I do think there is something too. I don't want to say the Phillies are trying to break him. I did see a comment asking about that specifically because I did kind of allude to that in a previous video. Sort of my takeaway is it's more of a statement from Rob Thomson just being like, you're not above the team, that we're not playing. Our world does not revolve around Alec Bohm in the way that we often do see star players of the biggest magnitude sort of command that. Alec Bohm is not that guy and certainly has not been with the way that he's playing. So that's sort of my takeaway, that I do think there will be a little bit more increased benching, that happens to guys who I don't want to say are a head case because I think that's a little bit too strong of a label for Alec Bohm, but is expressive, does have, those passionate moments in a way that other guys may not there. So I do think there's something to Rob Thomson setting the tone with what flies and what doesn't by sitting him down on the bench during certain days. I don't think that they ever send him down to the minor leagues, particularly from the stance of, at the end of the day, you got to solve this situation somehow. If that means trading him, you certainly don't help your return by sending him down to the minors because you're showing your cards to every team in the league here. There's Bryson Stott. Also don't think anywhere where that happens. Brandon Marsh, which is where we start to get interesting, and Johan Rojas, both at the bottom of that. So with Marsh and Rojas, each being capable of being sent out of the minors without having to clear waivers there, it does make me wonder if there could be a little Justin Crawford opportunity coming soon. It's been strange to me that there hasn't felt to be the same momentum of push for Crawford specifically when you compare to some of these other guys, and I understand he's not Andrew Painter. I understand he's not Aiden Miller, but he is a guy that I do believe could very well grow into being a starting caliber MLB outfielder, and that might even be a little bit lower on the scale. That I do think there's a chance that this guy fully clicks. We obviously know the family tree that he comes from, the success that he's had, and he's just smashing the ball down in the minors right now. So if that is the case, I do wonder if it's worth at least considering that. Now, I don't think they're quite there yet. We're less than 10% through the MLB season as a whole. We're still at the early parts of this marathon that is the season. But that's something I'm going to have my eye on for these next couple weeks. And that does bring me back to this point about where things are going south. With all this being said, and while I still think that should be on the table, the Phillies are not going to win or lose the World Series based on how Brandon Marsh or Johan Rojas are producing there. The main guys have to be main guys, and they haven't been of late. Just pointing to the score in the most recent game, in today's game, 7-0 Cardinals. You put up 0 runs. That cannot happen. You hitting at this level with runners in scoring position, that just cannot happen there. So the main guys got to step up. And I do love that Rob Thomson is tinkering with the lineup in the way that he has. So we saw Bryson Stott jump out to lead off, take a chance at that. We've seen Trey Turner. We've seen him abandon the left-hander. We watched Kyle Schwarber hitting the 3 spot today, which is interesting. I don't think I would go back to that one, but I do love that he's trying things. One of the other takeaways before I sign off here, I do think it's important to note that Rob Thomson is managing with some urgency this year. This is not stay asleep behind the wheel. Whatever's instructed to me or whatever lineup card that people want, that's what we roll with. This feels like Rob Thomson really being pretty, proactive in making changes, in switching up the lineup, in putting guys in different spots to maximize this Phillies roster. Without all the kind of roster turnover that we hope for this offseason, that's the only way you're going to get more production out of the same guys, and I do love that he is taking those steps there. So still a lot of moving parts, still a long season to go, but it has been unacceptable the rate that this offense is producing. I don't think that can fall on Rob Thomson's plate whatsoever. So we'll be interesting to see where things go from here. They have now concluded this series with the Cardinals, and I do hope that the next time they step back on the field, which I believe is tomorrow, we see a couple more changes in place. Keep tweaking the lineup at this point. I don't see any appeal to sticking with it. None of them have felt like the one yet, at least. And again, we're very early in this year, but I want Rob Thomson to keep playing around with things and keep that tucked in the back of your mind. I don't think we're quite there yet, but it would not shock me if there is a decision. I do think Rojas is the more likely guy. That would be Rojas sent down and Crawford getting a chance there. Just putting that back out into the atmosphere at this point in case we get to that stage. I'm thinking a couple more games on a slide, and all of a sudden that becomes a real conversation, but do want to hear if you guys agree or not. Drop those thoughts below. And before I sign off one more time, do want to remind you guys, as always, to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. 62.1% of you guys watch these videos, you have not subscribed to the channel just yet, so make sure you're hitting that button. It helps us out a ton right here on Phillies Digest. Make sure you drop a like on this video, and we'll be back. Talk with you next time. Peace.